What is going on, everybody? It's your observant lineman here, Uche Nwaneri, and Deshaun Watson headed to Cleveland. Cleveland Browns have won the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. This news breaking over the last hour, 2 hours or so. Wanted to kind of wait to see how things folded out with it and the reaction to it before I actually did a video giving my thoughts. Been keeping up online with everything that's been going on as far as the media reacting to it, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But this is obviously huge because just yesterday, Deshaun Watson was said to have pulled himself out of negotiations with the Cleveland Browns. It was thought that he was likely going to be heading to possibly Atlanta. There was a little bit of excitement from me on that because it kind of seemed like a good fit, you know. Now, obviously, there'd be a situation with Matt Ryan there, but nonetheless, that did make the rounds in the rumor mill around the NFL. Now, this contract that they have given Deshaun Watson, it is a fully guaranteed $230 million contract.
They should have never gave you niggas money.
Every dollar is guaranteed. He says every dollar of Deshaun Watson's new 5-year, $230 million contract deal is guaranteed per sources, setting a new NFL record for highest guarantee given to an NFL player. The Browns and Watson's agent, David Mulugeta, combine to make history. And there's an interesting detail about this contract itself that we'll also get into here in a minute. Now, obviously, Deshaun Watson's saga has been one it's been a wild one. It's been a ride. He sat out all of last season for Houston, refused to play. Also, there is the allegations of misconduct that he had against him from 22 different women. I've reported on that before. I've done videos on that before. So go through and look at my daily briefing playlist if you'd like to see that video or those videos, actually. But this is something that clearly was going to cause a bit of a divide in the reaction because of that. Anything having to do with Deshaun Watson at this point would be up to the scrutiny of the court of public opinion, because obviously a grand jury declined to indict him on charges after they were presented evidence by a prosecutor. For what it's worth, in a grand jury trial or a grand jury proceeding, it is only the prosecutor who is allowed to present evidence. The defense is not allowed to present evidence. So this was a situation where the prosecution laid out everything they had, and the grand jury decided that there was not enough there to indict him. So that has become a situation that's now behind him in regards to the legal side of it. Still looking at some civil lawsuits that will be coming, of course, since there is no criminal case that is going to be held up against him. There will be a civil suit, and they're going to, litigate that in court. Just to talk a little bit more about this, there's a lot of implications on this contract. You look at Baker Mayfield, he is now going to be traded because he is no longer going to be their QB1.
I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man.
That kind of brings full circle the situation where he put up a post that we talked about on the show earlier this week. He put up a lengthy post talking about his time in Cleveland and how much he appreciated the fans of Cleveland for what they have allowed, or how they have embraced him in his time in Cleveland as a Cleveland Brown. Now, this does make these Cleveland Browns a dangerous team, my friends, because now you have a two-headed monster at running back with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and then you have Amari Cooper at the wide receiver position, and now you have Deshaun Watson at the quarterback position. This is going to be now, I'm assuming, a Cleveland Browns team that's going to be favorited in the AFC North because this guy is a game changer. Now, we'll see how much rust there is to knock off once He does get reps and get back into the flow of things. Again, he hasn't played football in a year, and we still don't know if the NFL is going to bring a hammer down as well because of the simple fact that he had this situation with these women come up in his life. Now, Roger Goodell is going to decide whether or not he will be suspended and what length of suspension that will be because NFL personal conduct policy. So the trade itself that sends Deshaun Watson to the Cleveland Browns is as follows. The Browns and the Texans are in agreement on a trade for Deshaun Watson. It's 3 first-round picks, a third-round pick, a late-round pick swap, and a fourth for a fifth. They got a lot for trading him, the Houston Texans. Now, Cleveland, there are people out there who I've been reading around online. They're looking at this as something that's reminiscent of a New Orleans style giveaway of your draft capital for the foreseeable future in order to get one player. I do think if you're talking about winners and losers in this, you have to know that the Texans are the winner in this because the Texans have actually kind of put together a little nucleus for their team here in the last season. And, you know, they're going to be sticking with Mills at quarterback. I don't think that they're necessarily looking for a quarterback, but they've got hella draft capital now. And they've got premium draft capital. That's going to give them an opportunity to bounce back from the debacle that Bill O'Brien put them in when he traded away DeAndre Hopkins and pretty much sank the franchise in one fell swoop because things went directly downhill from that moment. So now the Texans are going to be in a situation where they can actually make substantial ground up and maybe even put themselves back out there as a competitive potentially contender in the next year or two. Very quick turnaround for the Texans if they play it right with these draft picks that they got. So that's going to be huge for them. So the Browns get the quarterback that they've been looking for because they have been looking for a long time. They've got one of the best defenses in the NFL. They've got threats on offense, obviously. And now they're in a position where they're ready to win this season. The Steelers in their division, we don't know what they're going to look like. The Baltimore Ravens, we're looking at them. We don't necessarily know what they're going to look like. These are teams that are not really, you can't really look at them and say they are going to be competing, you know, for a heavy push into the postseason because they really haven't been performing up to what we would have expected out of these teams over the last few years. So now the Browns are actually in a perfect position and the timing is kind of right for them. So we'll see how they play out, how it plays out with them in that regard. But we also have the responses online when it comes to this Deshaun Watson case.
What a great honor to be able to introduce for the first time ever anywhere.
And that's where, in my opinion, things start getting a little bit dicey. Now, Sarah Spain is an ESPN radio host. And, you know, I like her takes. A lot of times she has pretty good takes about things. But I'm seeing and hear a lot of, I don't know. I mean, look, I understand it's a complicated situation because you're looking at this from the standpoint of a woman where, of course, yes, I would say 22 women having complaints about something in regards to, you know, misconduct, logic tells you that there has to be something there. There has to be something there. Something was happening that caused these women to believe that they were being taken advantage of or that they were being, you know, handled inappropriately. Now, I don't know. We don't know what that is. None of us know. The only way that we could actually know is if there were charges brought against Deshaun Watson. Now, again, grand jury said, not enough evidence for us to say he did anything illegal. Doesn't mean he didn't do it. Doesn't mean he's innocent. Doesn't mean he's like squeaky clean in this. It's a difficult thing to talk about when you talking about female sports writers, female sports journalists, because, you know, you want to be understanding of where they're coming from. So I'm going to go through some of these tweets here that she's put out, and, you know, we'll try and see if there's any way we can, like, at least understand it, because nobody really feels perfect about that situation with Deshaun Watson. Everything is really kind of muddled and ugly, and, you know, what we were leaning on was whether or not he was going to be charged, and he wasn't. So Let's go through some of this. It says here, it actually can be quite tough, especially in cases of sexual harassment and assault, because if law enforcement feel they're not likely to prove guilt, they may decide not to move forward. And in this case, oddly, several accusers were present hoping to speak, and only one was called. And I believe she's talking about the case as it was happening with the grand jury. One thing I don't know that I can agree with is that she's directly correlating and comparing this situation with the situation of Larry Nassar. Larry Nassar, as many know, and if you don't know, look it up. Larry Nassar was pretty much a monster, and he did a lot of things and a lot of very disgusting things over a long period of time with a lot of women on the U.S. Women's Olympic Gymnastics team. I believe he is serving like 1,000 years in prison right now. But it says, if you're sitting there wondering why you feel compelled to defend Deshaun Watson despite 20-plus accusations and corroborating evidence, this might help you. Now, see, this is where I'm like, why would you make this comparison? Because one person is in prison, one person was indicted, one person had evidence presented against them, and they were put in prison for it because they were found guilty, and the other wasn't. And this guy, Larry Nassar, this was something that spanned over decades. I mean, I don't even remember the number, but I know it was in the hundreds of women that he, was accused of being inappropriate with in a very serious manner. They have video. There's video footage of interrogations that police did with him, and there were a lot of problems and a lot of errors made with how the police handled that situation as well, which allowed it to continue on for even a longer period of time. But a lot of very disgusting, very disturbing details about that situation they're not really comparable to what we know about Deshaun Watson's case, which has not even gone, a fraction of the distance that this guy's case has gone. But Sarah Spain feels a certain kind of way about this, and I can understand that, and I ain't mad at her. I'm not mad at her for feeling that way. I just want to, be able to present to you guys the other side of it, because yes, we're excited as football people and football fans that, Deshaun Watson is now going to be playing football again. The Cleveland Brown fans out there are, beside themselves. They're excited. But also there's another side to this that does deserve our time and deserves our respect and deserves our, attention for a moment to kind of give more, a more full perspective on this, because that's what, at the end of the day, as far as my content's concerned on my channel, that's what I want to try and give to you guys, give as much perspective as possible. But she says here, as we continue, you conspiracy theorists really don't hear how stupid you sound, claiming 20-plus women, including some not filing suit, were hired because the team was mad at Watson. So he'd be under investigation while they tried to get a good trade for him, causing him to sit on the books a year? Fair point. Again, I mean, look, I did not want to pass any kind of judgment on this Deshaun Watson situation as it pertained to the sexual assault cases, mainly because there's a lot of freaking women. It's a lot of women. I mean, logic says that's not, it can't all be lying. They can't all be, out to get something. Now, is it impossible? I never say never, but odds are definitely against that all of these women are just making this up. She says here, also interested to hear whether the Browns spoke to any of his accusers before making the deal. We often hear that teams have fully vetted or properly investigated accused athletes only to learn they've only spoken to friends and family. Now, see, for me, this is, I ask her very simply, a legitimate question. I say, how would speaking to any of these women alter or influence a decision on whether or not they traded for Deshaun Watson? The NFL has the info on this case, and I'm sure every team looking has it as well. So what would speaking to any accuser accomplish to you? So the reason why I say and ask that question and frame it the way I do is because at the end of the day, there's still a number of degrees of separation between the sport of football as an entertainment product, as a media product, as a brand with the NFL. There's a degree of separation from that and the real everyday mundane life that we live in. Like there is a split. There's a little bit of separation there. There's due diligence done on players who were in these situations. And then for a high profile player, one of the highest in the NFL, like Deshaun Watson, I feel like when they look at giving him the kind of contract they give him, they're thinking about this contract in regards to the NFL and how the NFL will handle Deshaun Watson. One issue or one detail that a lot of people probably have, kind of glanced over and not really understood as far as Deshaun Watson's contract is that the first year of his contract is a $1 million. He has a $1 million salary. They did that on purpose. The Cleveland Browns gave him a $1 million salary for the first year of the contract in case he gets suspended for the entire season by the NFL. So he would only lose $1 million. And it's kind of weird saying that because you look at a guy like Calvin Ridley who just got suspended for, betting like $3,500 or $1,500 on the Falcons to win. And he is losing $11 million because of that. He's being suspended for an entire season, and he is going to lose $11 million for that. I would even think to myself, hey, why didn't the Falcons restructure his contract so he's only making maybe $1.5 or $2 million this coming season so he doesn't lose 11? Because Cleveland took that into account when they gave him the contract. But I digress. It really comes down to when the NFL is looking at giving a guy a contract and structuring a contract, they're looking to make sure that they protect themselves from the windfall of any situations where they lose a player, but they also have to pay him a ton of money and they get no value from him in that season. And that's something that from a business standpoint is a smart thing for the Cleveland Browns to do. They know the situation with him and these women. Who doesn't? And they know more than we know. Because the NFL, if you don't believe the NFL has all of the interviews that these women have had, with investigators and the interviews that Deshaun has had with investigators, if you think they don't have every single page of data on this situation, you're kidding yourselves. Absolutely they do. So it's not a matter of whether or not they will go speak to any of his accusers. His accusers have already spoken on the record, and they have those records. So it's kind of irrelevant for that to even be, a perspective to take or a way to try and look at things when in reality, that the NFL would have that information and that the team would have that information. Now, I understand where these women are coming from. Mina Kimes, she put out a tweet talking about this is how the NFL feels about women. Well, I get where the saltiness from them comes from. I get it. I would say this. I would offer this simple, kind of response to that. I would say you work in the sports industry, and the majority and the biggest audience you have is because of your coverage of football. If you truly feel the way you feel about Deshaun Watson and the situation and how the NFL is approaching it, then maybe don't cover the NFL in protests. I think that, hey, you're making money off of it. So as much as you are, up in arms or feeling, very disappointed in how the situation is played out from the money standpoint and him getting a new contract, maybe you should cover a different sport so that you show that you are in protest of how the NFL's handled this. Or maybe you keep covering it so you can keep getting paychecks because that is what's paying your bills. The NFL is paying your bills too. So it's really hard for me to totally, feel totally sympathetic to it because you're going to benefit off of your views from a financial standpoint directly related to Deshaun Watson and his situation. He stands to lose a lot of money over the next few years with this litigation. But you guys stand to make a lot of money covering such litigation. So it's kind of hypocritical in a sense to talk about how bad the league is in regards to handling in regards to handling situations like this or how they perceive women to be viable, seen as viable in the NFL, But yet you are here making money at every click of a tweet and every half hour of commentary that you have on TV. So, one hand washes the other and there are no complaints. But now, a person goes through the court process, whether we believe he's 100% innocent or not, there's no evidence that says he did anything illegal. And now he's being paid because of the value he provides as a quarterback, which is undeniable. If there is any part of this entire situation with Deshaun Watson that is a certainty, with 100% certainty, is that he is a value, a highly, highly coveted value in the NFL. And teams were willing to give up literally their future in the draft to have his services. That says a lot. He is the only and the first player in NFL history to receive a 100% fully guaranteed $100+ million contract. $230 million guaranteed. That says something about your value as a player. And that's what the NFL cares about at the end of the day. When all things else are equal, which from a legal standpoint, he is back on solid ground. That's all they care about. We know that. We've known that. Everybody knows that. Is it 100% right? I won't say that. But that's the way it is. Will it change? No. We know it won't change. They might change like the way they word things to make it sound like they give a damn. But we know the NFL don't care. It's a machine. It's a profit-based capitalistic machine. It is not worried about how people feel in the public court of opinion, which is, a sobering reality, but it is a reality nonetheless. But that is the Deshaun Watson trade. That is the Deshaun Watson saga, somewhat coming to a resolution at this point, at least as far as his football career is concerned. Let me know what you guys think. How do you feel about the trade? How do you feel about the discussion about his situation in the court of public opinion? Let me know down below in the comments. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. And I appreciate you guys very much for checking me out. I will catch you all on the next one. Peace.